Thank you once again for being Locked On Cougars, your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, what are you waiting for? I passed along a bevy of notes of what I learned from BYU football practice last night, and they went out to our Locked On Cougars Insider group. The link is in the show notes, whether you're watching and or listening to this. It's a 14-day free trial. That'll get you essentially to the start of the college football season to see if it's the right option for you. I'm passing along updates of what I'm hearing about BYU football and everything else I have for you guys, and it goes directly to your phone in the form of a text message. It does not get much simpler than that. You're not having to go to a message board or log into a website to get the inside intel that you crave as a Cougar fan. So join us on the Locked On Cougars Insider group, and hope you guys will be a part of it. It's the best part is you can have one-on-one conversations with myself via text message. So join us today. All right. Before we go on today's show, let's talk about Aaron Dunn. Now, this big offensive lineman, a four-star prospect, the number 2 prospect out of the state of Utah in the upcoming recruiting cycle, he opted for BYU's arch rival, the University of Utah, yesterday. Now, word trickled out ahead of his announcement that he was down to 3 finalists. Those finalists, Oregon, USC, and Utah. Well, it was not even a month ago that BYU was considered to be one of the 5 finalists for his in the running for Aaron Dunn's signature in terms of his verbal commitment. Obviously, later on, he'll put pen to paper. But BYU fell out of it. Now, I don't proclaim to have the inside scoop on that. I would not give a tip of the cap to guys like Jeff Hansen if they can fill you guys in on why he opted to go elsewhere and BYU dropped out of the race. But I can tell you, it's just another hit for BYU on the recruiting front. Now, there is still time for BYU to recover. There's absolutely time. There are other offensive linemen out there that BYU is pursuing. Siosua Vete, his brother, is a current commit to BYU. Siosua is committed to Stanford. Could BYU work with his brother Kalepi to get him to flip over to BYU? That'd be a nice get if they can pull that off. There's also another Pay brother out there in the ether, Austin Pay, and Connor's a regular guest on this podcast. I am going to be very upfront with you guys. I very rarely ask Connor for any information because it's something that he has expressed on this podcast is that it is Austin Pay's cycle and his opportunity in life to determine where he's going to play. It doesn't hurt that Gary, their father, played at BYU and ultimately went on to play in the NFL for a short time with the 49ers. It doesn't hurt that Connor Pay is well on his way to the NFL after this season. Trevor Pay, and by the way, I'll tell you what I've seen from Trevor working with the second and third string offensive lines is that Trevor is coming home off of a mission is actually showing quite well for an RM that did not get home all that long ago. Is Austin Pay in line to follow the family legacy to Provo? Only time will tell. But as it stands right now, BYU is on a bit of a losing streak when it comes to the recruiting. A number of high-level athletes that BYU would have loved to have had, and I know that you can say that BYU didn't want Aaron Dunn. I can tell you BYU absolutely did want Aaron Dunn. Why wouldn't you want that? 6'8", 6'9", whatever he is, just a prototypical offensive tackle prospect, and he opts to go to the University of Utah. That is a hit to BYU any which way you want to cut it, because he is growing up and playing in the shadow of Brigham Young University. A Spanish Fork is a stone's throw away relative to Provo, and he ultimately opts to bypass Provo, which is what, 10 miles max from his house probably, to go 50 miles north and play for the University of Utah. And that just adds to the recent run for BYU. I think Anusi Tamoya-Peau, who committed to Stanford. You can go on down that list of late. It's been nothing but other guys picking other schools, and they're not BYU. Well, what's it going to take for BYU to become the IT program and to get back into winning some of these recruiting battles? Well, first off, I think the biggest thing is they've got is just to get one guy, it feels like, to take the plunge. The other thing, because I talk about one guy, you can get an influential prospect who wants to be that quote-unquote recruiter for the rest of his recruiting class to make the ultimate decision to join BYU. That could go a long way to helping that individual start to recruit his fellow classmates and say, hey, BYU is where you want to be. Is one of those guys in BYU's class? TBD, because they got 16 commits right now. Could any one of them step up? Hopefully. The other thing that BYU needs to do this fall is show progress with this football program, Right now, let's be honest, BYU's on a 5-game losing streak. They started a season 5-2 last year and then lost 5 straight and came agonizingly close. Remember, it was a double overtime loss to Oregon State, following a very tough loss to Oregon the week, not Oregon, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Man, I butchered those. I got Pac-12 on the brain or something. But speaking of Oklahoma State, a double overtime loss in the week previous to that Oklahoma game that slipped away from BYU. They had a chance to get to bowl eligibility. They did not do that, and it has been shoved in BYU's players' faces all offseason long that they are a losing club, that they are going to struggle in the Big 12. They're going to be no good. They're quote-unquote bums out there. If BYU can get back to a winning way, if they start the season 3-0 in the non-conference slate, pick up some momentum and carry it over into Big 12 play, and let's say they reel off, let's say a 7-5 season or heaven forbid an 8-4 type campaign, that would help BYU on the recruiting front. Players want to play for winning programs. They want to go places they know they're going to have success. Right now, BYU's perception is they're a struggling club in the Big 12, whereas in the case of University of Utah, they're the Big 12 favorite. That's the simple truth of the matter that BYU is going up against right now. Could it change in an instant? Yes, it could. But the last 2 months, roughly, for BYU in the recruiting front, it's been a long dry spell for the Cougars. And that's tough to swallow because once again, the athletes that BYU has been pursuing in this recruiting cycle, a lot of them are in-state guys. A lot of them are highly thought of prospects that BYU would absolutely love to have in their program, and they've picked elsewhere. That's tough to stomach if you're a Cougar fan. I completely understand that, but it is going to take BYU proving that they can go out there and win on the gridiron, number one overall. Winning will solve a lot of the issues BYU has in the recruiting front right now. There's also an element when it comes to NIL. I believe that BYU is as competitive as anybody when they want to be on the NIL front. We've seen that with BYU basketball. They're flashing cash left, right, and center in the basketball program. And the conversations I've had with people involved with BYU on the football front, they believe that they have the requisite funds if they need them to go out and attract guys. But players want to know they're going to go to a place where they can develop. Aaron Dunn's a bit of an interesting case. I'll just also add this. He's an offensive tackle, and BYU has a nice run over the past 3 NFL drafts, or that's not the last 3 NFL drafts. The last 3 left tackles from BYU have all been drafted into the NFL, and if Caleb Etienne, the hype about him is real, it could be 4 for 4. You'd think that would be a pretty attractive proposition to a guy like Aaron Dunn, and like I said, I'm not going to proclaim to know why he didn't pick BYU because I don't know. I'll be in the interest of full disclosure. I don't know why he didn't pick BYU. But I think that BYU's got a pretty compelling pitch for a young man like that. And the fact that the playing time option, which I believe would be a big conversation for him next year with guys like Braden Keim and Caleb Etienne exiting the program, to me, it comes down to that they want to play for a winning program. And right now, Utah in particular has got that rep in state. So it is a tough pill to swallow to watch BYU struggling as much as they are on the recruiting front. But the hope is in the relatively not too distant future, BYU can pick up some recruiting wins. And if they want to pick up those recruiting wins, well, I think some just overall wins on the football field would help really get that rolling here. It's my PSA as we close out the week here on the podcast.